Texas!
He's a 10.
I choose this family.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 139 of 911 Lone Star Roundup. I'm one of your hosts, EJ, and joining me today are my lovely co-hosts, Katie and Grace.
Hey guys.
Hey everyone.
Today we'll be talking about season 8, episode 10 of 911, which is called Voices. And there's a lot to talk about, and this was the continuation of last week's episode. So it literally picks up right after that episode ended. So we've got Chim and Buck coming back to Chim and Maddie's house, and they're just like talking about the expensive meals and desserts they had. And Chim saying he almost felt bad until he actually did it. And, you know, his joke was that Eddie had to pay for his going away dinner. So everybody was ordering extra stuff. You know, Buck's response is, well, he's leaving us, so that's what he gets.
I loved that response to Uncle Buck, and honestly, same.
Right.
Fair enough. You know what? We'll take this pettiness. We'll take this pettiness about leaving.
Yeah. So Buck starts yelling for Maddie, saying he's eating her fries, and then Chim is like, easy, Mr. Megaphone. I got a sleeping toddler in the house. He's like, if she wakes up, it's up to Buck's to put her back to bed. And Buck's like, he'll take any quality time he can get with his niece, which is so cute. I love that.
It's so
Yeah,
cute.
it's adorable.
So Buck's like, where's Maddie? And Chim says, oh, she's probably in the shower. And Buck's like, yeah, but I don't hear any water running. And Chim's like, oh, yeah, I guess I don't either. So Chim tries to kind of call out for her. She doesn't answer. And then Buck notices her wedding ring is on the sink, which a lot of people do take off their rings when they're doing dishes and stuff. And
it's a bitch to have water get onto your rings.
Yeah.
That's why I don't wear rings to work, because I wash my hands so frequently.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's such a fear of losing them, and that's always an important ring. So she wouldn't just take it off, for a reason that's except for like washing dishes or kneading bread dough or something. And when he's noticing that, Chim comes back and he's like, you know, Maddie isn't here, G's asleep, but Maddie's not here, and he doesn't like Chim doesn't know how that doesn't make sense to him. So then he calls her, but her phone is vibrating on the dining table, and Chimhao it's starting to freak out a little bit, and Buck shows him the ring, and then G comes out of the room asking where mommy is.
That was so sad.
Oh my god.
Like it was just like so sweet, but like so sad at the same time. And I'm just like, oh no. Like when they put that in the promo, I was just like, oh no. Oh.
Right. Like thankfully, like she didn't witness anything. Like we'll talk more about like what later, but I was like, oh my god. She was asleep this whole time, and then like, where's mommy?
Oh my gosh. Like, yeah, that's the question of the hour. Where is mommy?
Right. So then we see a brief clip of Maddie. She's just starting to wake up from whatever she was drugged with, probably chloroform, because that's pretty standard. And so we, you know, and Amber had drugged her, but as Maddie's waking up, she's kind of like, it's kind of blurry, and she can see that Amber's talking to somebody, but then she sees that Maddie's waking up, and then she's like, this is a private conversation, and then covers her mouth again. And I was like, at first I was like, this gal's got multiple personality disorder, or I know there's another name for it now.
Yeah, that's what I had wrote in the notes later on, because I was like, some parts of this really confused me. Like this part, like I'm like trying to figure out who is she talking to, and I had so many questions after I watched this the first time, because I was like, I still want to know like certain things, like I'm still confused on. But then I watched it again, and I was like, okay, some of these things I feel like I've kind of found the answers for, or at least something like that. But like she was talking to somebody, but like even in later scenes she has like the same, like it's the same voices, and I'm like, there she is definitely like there's one person there.
Right. Yeah.
So I will say I absolutely love this episode. I'm just gonna say that this was a great episode. This part of it I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of, and it's because so I have friends that have DID, so dissociative identity disorder, and that means that there are multiple people in their brains. And so I have friends with this. There's another acronym, OSDD, and I not only does it not look like this, but also not only like people with DID are routinely villainized in media, shows, TV, like Criminal Minds. did a lot of it itself. Like this, the moment I heard that there was a like multiple personality thing in this, I was like, they are not going to do it right by it. And you know what? It's not the most harmful representation I've ever seen of it, but it's still not necessarily accurate. So I was like,
Yeah.
this did not, I will just say, it did not need to be a thing. I think that
Yeah.
if they had taken out the multiple personalities thing, it still would have been an absolutely solid storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like they were trying to use it as like a trauma response, but like it
Mhm.
like
Which it
not only
absolutely is. That is why
yeah,
it's a thing.
right. Yeah. It 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 just ended up being way more confusing. There were a couple of things that they put in an episode where I was just like, this was kind of unnecessary. Like I get that why they had this because they were trying to like almost confuse and make us think that like
Yeah.
oh there's going to be multiple people here and that kind of thing because I was so confused. I was like who the heck is she talking to?
Right.
I actually knew in the first scene what was going on, just simply because I was watching just the scenes were deliberately very confusing, like the shots were very confusing. But and especially I had already heard a spoiler that there's multiple personality thing happening. So once with that in mind, I knew what was happening because I was
Yeah,
watching
me
the
too.
shots. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so could have done without that whole aspect of things,
Right.
but we'll roll with it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, preemptively, this was not a thing I was a fan of.
Yeah. Because most of the time when they do represent that, they're not representing it accurately. And when you have DID, you don't often fight with yourself like this was portrayed, because normally there's a specific time or a trigger that causes one of the personalities to come out. And it's not usually competing against each other like that.
Yeah. And it's
But
not,
yeah.
in my experience, it doesn't happen like that either. Like, they do communicate with each other, but it's
Mhm.
not usually one person, like, them going back and forth fronting so that the people around can hear, so to
Right.
speak. That, I will say a lot of people have gotten their ideas of what the ID looked like from the movie Split, which was very inaccurate representation. And also, this looked a lot more like Gollum than actual person. That's what it was making me think of. I'm like, oh, we're having Smeagol situations here. Got it.
Okie dokie. So we're back at Chimneys, and sometime in between the last scene and now, Hen has come. They've called Hen, so she's come over. So Hen and Buck are both calling hospitals and dispatch around the area. Hen asks about Maddie's phone, but Chim says it's there. Nothing on there. Eddie shows up, and when he asks if there's any news, Buck tells him that they've called every hospital from here to Orange County. And Hen says she thinks it's time they call someone else. She thinks he needs to file a missing persons report. So she asks that, while he's waiting, Chim's explained that they found out that Maddie is pregnant. So they make a big deal. So then obviously the shift for him is he's concerned that she found out she's pregnant and now she's taking off, or that there's some mental stuff going on with her because of the past postpartum depression. But Maddie said she, had said she wouldn't leave without telling him, and he told her he wouldn't treat her like she's broken. So he's got this like nerves, which is fair, though she hasn't really shown any signs of any concerning things recently. So for them to automatically jump to that was a little, to me, out there. But also they didn't know what was going on. Like they didn't have any,
Right.
like there weren't any like broken glasses on the floor or anything to show like there might have been something happen. So for all he knew, she just like decided to leave. And Hen even says, like if this is a mental health crisis, we need to get her help. And, Chim makes a comment like she was doing so well. And Buck says how she was well before too, until she wasn't, because she just kind of snapped. So then Hen tells Buck and Eddie
But
to
we also had a lot more signs about that than like this. But also they didn't see the signs before, so I get that they are paranoid about it, but
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because it was during like when they had that huge like outage, like they weren't really around too.
yeah.
Yeah. I did hit I get why that was their well, not their conclusion, but that is what they thought was going on because it was very like sudden and like obviously when somebody does have like past with their mental health, like that's kind of like the first thing you look at. But I was just like, oh, I hate that we're going here. Like I get it, but I also like hate it. Like it's just
Yeah.
Right.
I I definitely didn't love it. But like I absolutely understood
right.
why they went down that path. I think it's just it was maybe a little bit more frustrating for us knowing that Maddie was in danger
Yeah.
and
Right,
like seeing her
yeah.
in a perilous situation, but like they're not
Right.
quite moving fast enough. It's like, no, just fucking move.
Yeah.
I know, like we're yelling this whole episode, especially in this one scene later. I know I was because I'm just like, why are we here? Like, why is nobody like being like, this situation is very suspicious.
Right. Yeah, we as the audience know more than what the
Right.
characters do at certain times. So it is frustrating because we're like, oh my God, guys, just like wake up. Um, and so kind of the end of the scene, Hen sends Buck and Eddie out to canvass the neighborhood, because she could be just walking around the neighborhood. Chim's gonna go look downtown, and Hen's gonna stay with G, and Hen calls Athena. And it was good to see, outside of the assumptions being made, it was good to see the four of them working together because we know like Eddie's getting ready to leave, and we always love when they all work together doing things. So I mean, in that part, it was really cool.
We got so much 118 family vibes in this episode.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's been around lately, but I feel like this is the most we've seen of it for a while, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing everyone's bonds and them all sticking by each other.
Yeah. So then Maddie wakes up again, this time because Amber was slapping her. She's shackled, her leg is shackled, and Amber's trying to give her water, but Maddie's kind of pulling away because she's probably worried that it's got drugs in it. And Amber's like, oh, don't worry, it's not drugged. And says if she wanted to dose Maddie again, she would just use the rag. And Maddie makes the comment how Athena said Amber volunteered for the case. And Amber says, well, yeah, I wanted to see if I could show you it was all a hoax. But then Maddie ruined it by coming in with all this evidence. And then Amber knew Maddie was going to be a problem. And Maddie was like, it was you the whole time, your voice. And Amber said, there's an app for everything. It's like, well, I mean, not wrong, but...
Well, that's a flashback as well to season 4 when they apprehended the one guy, the bank robber guy, because he was taking ride shares.
I forgot about that.
I forgot about that until literally the second, and I was like, wait, they literally used that line. There's an app.
Right? That's funny.
Okay.
So Maddie makes a comment about Richard Bullock, and Amber says they did a service with that one and says how she has been after him for a long time. And then she thanks Maddie for being able to give her a reason to take out the trash, but they are not here to talk about him. They're here to talk about Maddie. And it was definitely
it's
a creepy
giving me
scene.
the creeps.
Yeah.
Like, though, like I would say the like most of the episode, I was like, what the hell? Like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening?
Right. Yeah. And since Amber last saw Maddie at the station when they were talking about it with Athena, Amber's assuming that Maddie has told somebody about how something wasn't right. So she's questioning Maddie if she told Athena or her husband. And Maddie tells her that she took her from her home and that she didn't get a chance to talk to anybody. Amber pulls the chains and says she doesn't believe Maddie, and Maddie says she's not lying, and Amber says how it's just like you weren't about sending the police, so she's, pulling up the whole when Maddie was lying to her on the phone about sending the police when she said she wasn't going to. And Maddie's like, well, you were supposed to save those girls. Amber then yells at her and says, I do save those girls. Maddie says, no, you kill them. Amber starts chuckling and says how Maddie is using her first name and she loves the tactic because she's trying to connect with her, as Maddie is a good dispatcher. She knows what to do. So, Maddie obviously asks him what Amber's going to do with her. And then Amber gets a call from Athena and says how it looks like somebody noticed she went missing and probably wants Amber to help find Maddie. And Maddie says, asks Amber, please, just, she wants out. And then Maddie screams as she shuts the door. And I was like, this was tough.
Yeah, it was very painful to watch. And I don't like This is so crazy because like it's like I don't get like I get she was probably trying to ask for help when she called, obviously. But it's just like it's just so hard to wrap your head around. Like I'm just
Right.
like trying to think about everything and I'm just like, this yeah.
And then, so we've got Bobby, Athena, and Shim are talking at the station. Athena's asking how Maddie was the last time they talked and asked if there's any indication. And Shim cut her off and said no. He thought she sounded fine. And Shim was like, maybe I was too caught up to hear her. And Bobby tells Shim that he didn't do anything wrong and they're going to find her. Amber shows up, was like, sorry, it took me a second, and asks if this is Maddie's husband. They are introduced and she meets him, and she's looking at Bobby, and Bobby introduces himself saying he's Athena's husband and Chim's captain. Chim asks, what more they can do, and says his friends are out looking for her. He's checked all the hospitals. And she tells Chim to finish filling out the form so she can get her in the system. And Amber asks to speak to Athena on the side.
Oh, this like gets me because it's just like the fact that she nonchalantly just walks in and is
Right.
like she knows exactly where Maddie is. And I
Right?
get that this is the point, but it just drives me nuts because I'm like, she knows exactly where she
Yeah.
is, and she and I guarantee she knows who everybody in this room is.
Yeah.
Like she's not
Oh yeah.
stupid.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's just the
For sure.
fact of her playing so dumb, which I get it. This is the point. They're not supposed to know yet. They're not gonna figure
Yeah.
this out. Obviously, like that's just how criminals work. But I'm just like screaming in the scene. I'm just like, what the
Yeah.
heck?
Oh, it was so it was so nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Because you're kind of like screaming at the TV because you're pissed about what's going on, but then you're like, the characters don't know, and it's just, yeah, it's
Yeah.
frustrating. So you
It's
get
just watching her manipulate the entire situation.
well,
Right?
which that's what she's gonna do. She's trying to hide what's going on, and I don't know. Yeah, I was really frustrated. I was like, oh, come on. So then we briefly see Maddie again, and she's stuck, but she manages to get to a chair and try to get free. Her hands are duct tape, so she's trying to use like a loose nail or screw on the chair to kind of like cut the duct tape.
Right.
And then we go back to Amber and Athena talking, and she asks Athena what Athena thinks, and Athena's like about Maddie, and Athena says how the last time I saw her, she was with Amber, so like Athena hasn't seen her since, and she says how she didn't seem like a woman who would suddenly pack up and then just disappear, and then
The
we
thing
kind
is,
of
she didn't pack up. Like literally nothing was missing from the
right,
house,
yeah,
minus maybe her ring on the sink, which she was washing dishes, so that's like that makes perfect sense.
right.
But it's just like it's not like she packed a bag.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be different if they came home and like her drawers were all open and her closet was empty, and yeah, I mean that would make sense, but she didn't do any of that. And then we're kind of seeing Maddie like trying to get free again, and then Amber tells Athena that she was pretty upset, and then asks if Athena can vouch for the husband, and Athena's like Chimney, and she says how he's like true blue, he would never do anything to hurt Maddie. Plus he was with people all day, which thankfully he was with the team. So
Yeah.
they can't like turn it around and say, well, he did something.
You could tell
And
she was just kind of fishing for any angle.
mhm,
Right, anything to like pin anybody on.
right,
Obviously, we know she's like a master manipulator at
right.
that.
Yeah.
And then Amber's like, didn't you speak with her after our meeting? And Athena says how she told her the last time she saw Maddie was with Amber because she was wanting to see just if Maddie was telling the truth about not telling anyone. And of course, like it's like she's questioning about Maddie, but it's like she knows all the situation. She just like trying to get the other side and be like, because she wants to like blame Maddie or something, but she knows like now she's hearing like Athena's like, yeah, no, I haven't talked with her since she left the office when we were together with you. So
Yeah, in this case, it's literally her like paranoia being her own doing.
right. And then we see like clips of like Maddie getting free, but she gets her hands free, so she kind of like gets up and tries to run across the floor, but stopped by the chain. And then Shin is telling Bobby and Athena that there's something he hasn't told them, and it's probably something he should have put in the form, but he didn't put it in. But he tells them that Maddie's pregnant. And Amber walks in the room saying the report is in the system and an APB is going out for Maddie. And then Amber's like, what? Because she can kind of tell they're all like frozen, stunned. And Bobby tells Chim that he should probably tell her. So Chim tells her that Maddie's pregnant and is just has just passed her first trimester. And Amber's like, I'm guessing you didn't put that on your form. And Chim says how it might explain things though, and explains after, they had their first child, Maddie suffered from postpartum depression. It was bad. Amber asks how bad, and Chim says she drove down to the beach and tried to drown herself. And Amber's like, I see. So she's like playing up this whole like, oh, okay. And Chim, I think what's throwing me off, and like you guys are not connecting dots because the postpartum comes after the baby's born, not during. There are things that can happen during pregnancy, but it's usually gone once the baby's born. So there's like all these, I'm like, okay, you guys are really screwing with this whole like mental illness and stuff. But I know they're trying, in this case, they're trying to bring up other reasons why Maddie would be gone than, thinking that she was taken. And really, Maddie really hasn't talked to Chim about the case or the call that much at all.
Right.
That
They
we
haven't
know
really
of.
had time.
Yeah.
Like, I think he knows that she was kind of working on something, but other than that, he doesn't know like a lot of the details on it.
Yeah, they have no reason to suspect she's been taken.
Right. So Chim says how, with the postpartum, and that she's shown absolutely no signs of depression or anything, out of the ordinary, since she got help. And Amber asks if Maddie said anything about the case they've been working on, and Chim says, yeah, he knows that she was freaked out, but she told him they got the guy. Amber asks if she said how they got him, and Chim is like, no, and Athena tells him he took his own life, and Maddie talked him into it, quote unquote. So obviously Chim is shocked. And Amber says they have to take that into account, that she was under unique stress. And then she asks to talk to Chim alone. And I'm like, don't talk to her alone.
I know, I was so scared what was going to happen because I was just like, like it's just, I'm just like, I didn't like, it was creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Amber, asks Chim privately, like what beach Maddie had gone to. And she's like, I just want to send a cruiser out there just in case.
That's so suspicious because we all know that's not why she was asking.
Right.
Like
it was
on
so
paper,
suspicious.
on paper, yes, that is why that's something she wants to say. But like we all know it's because like if she were to kill Maddie, she would want somewhere to dump her body to make it look like she had actually like
that's exactly what I thought. I was like, yep, she wants to find a place she can dump the body and make it look like she didn't do anything.
That's exactly what she's doing.
Yeah. So outside of the room, Athena and Bobby are talking, and Athena says something about it not being right. And Bobby says how he would say almost anything, nothing is right about this, which is that part of that clip we were seeing for like the promos. And she's like, it's not just about Maddie running away. It just happens to be on the same day that she helped stop a kidnapper. And Athena says, that's just too big of a coincidence. I'm like, yes, Athena.
I know she wasn't quite getting there yet, but she was starting to be like, okay, this is weird.
Well, you gotta start somewhere, and that's what she was doing.
Right, exactly.
And so then Amber, we're back to Amber and Chim. She's asking if Maddie's been doing any drinking, and Jim's like, with the baby on the way, no, absolutely not. And then she asks if she's sure she wants the baby, and Chim's like, yes. And Bobby makes a comment about a man's dead and he didn't kill himself and then kidnap Maddie. Athena's like, well, what if he wasn't working alone? Bobby's like, you suspect that you suspect he had an accomplice. And Athena says she didn't know until now, and she tells him not to say anything. She doesn't want Chim to worry, which I don't blame him. Blame her for saying that. And
right,
the less Chim knows, the better.
Yeah. That's very true.
And then when Chim comes back out, Athena asks if he's all set, and Chim says she gave her card. She told him to try her anytime, day or night, and he gets the feeling that she thinks Maddie will be missing for a while. And Bobby offers to give him a ride home, and Chim thinks he should be doing more, but Athena reassures him that he's doing what he should be doing, and that all he needs to do is go home and be with G. And I'm like, yes, you need to be home with your daughter and just like lean on your friends, which is what everybody else is doing and helping out. Yeah, I feel for her. I do. Like, he's so confused. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know what happened with the call until now. So he's got all these worries that are like building up that he didn't have before. Yeah. So Maddie's like,
Yeah.
in the next scene, we get Maddie kind of digging around, and she finds like a half case of some sort of soda or energy drink. So she cracks one open and starts drinking it. But it's so she can try to use the metal from the can to like cut the chains off of her foot, like somehow use it to like crack the lock. But then you hear a beep, and you can see like a wall of like video cameras, screens.
You know what
So
this reminded me of?
mm,
When Carlos was abducted.
I know.
remember the
Oh, yeah.
I was
lady?
having vast flashbacks to that. Yes.
I was having total flashbacks of that, not necessarily when I was watching it the first time, but like when I was rewatching it, I was like thinking about when we saw TK at the door, and then when we
Mhm.
see all the like the camera of the
Yep.
doorbell and like all these things, and I'm just like,
Right.
we've been here before, haven't we?
Right. So
I didn't
Andy,
think about that.
so then Maddie knows that Amber is back, and so she kind of hides, kind of scurries back to kind of where she was before Amber had left. And then Amber comes down the stairs and's like, somebody's got a bun in the oven.
The way that gave me
Oh
such
my God.
creeps.
It was so
That literally
freaking
made my
creepy.
skin crawl, guys. I was just like, oh, I don't like that.
Yeah.
It totally creeped me out.
So creepy.
Right. So then Maddie asks what she's going to do, and Amber says that she's just getting some things ready. And Maddie says how she's not some homeless runaway, and her husband isn't going to believe that she just walked away. And then Amber says that she has before, and Maddie asks if he told her. And Amber says how she did, she did when Amber called for help. And she told something, which she told something true, which is why which specifically we, like that was very stressed, could feel
Right.
that we could trust her, Maddie. But then it was just lies. Chim confirmed all the details. Amber says she thinks, or Chim thinks that she will do it again, as in running away. And Maddie says she was suffering from postpartum depression. And Amber says, I also hear prenatal depression can be really bad, especially for someone like Maddie in her history. And I'm like, she's
I
truly
mean-
trying to like build up something.
She's trying to build up a narrative.
Right.
So then Amber's holding the syringe of fentanyl and says it will be painless, just like falling asleep. And Maddie tries to get her to stop and says, wait. And Amber is like, for what? Maddie says for her daughter, she needs to say goodbye. She needs to write a note, and begs to be able to explain and tell her that she didn't walk away because of her. Amber agrees to get her a pen and a paper, which I was really surprised that she was willing to do. But
yeah, it was a compromise because she was like, she had said when Maddie wanted to say goodbye, she was like, well, do you see where you are like this? You don't get a phone call. And she's like, at least let me like say goodbye. And she's like, oh, like a no? Like,
Yeah.
so I was just like, well, I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then we see Buck and Eddie in the car. Eddie's driving, and Eddie comments about seeing a silver SUV, and Buck's like, oh, that's not her, because they realized that her car's missing too. And Buck says how this is pointless. She's not walking around. She took her car. Buck says whatever's going on with her is way worse than last time. Last time she at least let him know that she was leaving, and she made sure G was safe. Buck didn't know what is going on, but it felt that everything was finally getting back to the way it should be. Gerard was out as captain, and Bobby was back in, and then Tommy dumped him, and Maddie's missing or ran away. She's lost her mind, whatever it is. And then you're leaving and going back to Texas like it's nothing, and that like it doesn't affect anybody else. It does. And Eddie says, it's not nothing. And Buck says how he knows it's not nothing. He didn't mean. And he's like, hey, we've been up all night. Buck doesn't need to say anything. And so it's just this very awkward, like, car conversation between the
They're
two
so
of
tense.
them.
Yeah, I get it. This honestly, Buck saying like I felt like everything was getting back to how it should be was literally how I feel about like these last few episodes of us being back.
Mhm.
Like I feel like we're getting back to like our home state. We're getting like back to like how
Right.
things should be, but now like Eddie's leaving and like all this stuff is happening, and Buck
Yeah.
is totally like going on one of his spirals, which I totally understand. It's understandable. Like his best friend's moving away. It's like
Yeah.
It's like that feeling when you're not gonna see like the same people you see like every day.
Right.
Like
Mm,
it's hard. It's like a hard adjustment, and I'm not good with change, so I totally understand that Buck is probably not
Mm.
good with like this type of change, especially with somebody that he's worked with for like,
Yeah.
like 7 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, he's been super close with Eddie since day one, even like putting aside any of like the fandom like stuff, like they've been best friends since day one and really have only
Right.
had one major like rocky time when Buck in the lawsuit era.
Yeah, it was pretty sad.
mm,
But yeah, this is now the person that he's kind of been there or been with for a lot of that is leaving. And I feel for him. I totally get it. I'm going through the same thing, as I said in the
mm.
last episode. So it's just like this. And he's, of course, he's saying certain things in a way that obviously he knows that, like, he's not thinking clearly either because he's freaking out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they
Well, I
have been
mean,
up all night. That really does something to you.
Right.
yeah. I think it's, well, for one thing, we know he's been spiraling really badly after Tommy and he broke
Yeah.
up.
Right.
So that was already bad. And then he
Right.
finds out very shortly after that Eddie's moving. And of course
Hmm.
he's gonna spiral at that, because again, he's already been abandoned, now he's being abandoned again. And then Maddie goes missing. And Maddie was the only ever big, like, constant in his life.
Right.
So it's just really rough. I don't blame him for struggling. I think at this point, I think Eddie in this is starting to look past like what he's saying and maybe listening a little bit more to what's behind it. And Buck is also self-aware. He's saying shit and then immediately being like, no, I don't mean that.
Right.
And so
Right.
yeah, and they're tired. Again, they've been up all night. So it's just tough.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we see Jim getting home, and Deddy and Laura, along with Hen and Karen, are there. And Karen and Hen go and talk with Jim in the kitchen. And Karen says she hopes that he doesn't mind that they brought over the kids. And Jim thanks her for doing that for him. And Karen says how he's family, which I love them kind of all as like this big family.
Yeah.
And Hen asks how thing had gone at the police station. Jim says how kind the detective was, and says how she even informed him on things he didn't know. And she came to the conclusion that Maddie ran away, which isn't true, but we'll go with it for the moment.
Right. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is tough because like we're like, that is not it.
Right.
But and like him being like she was kind, I was like, manipulative, but okay, we'll go with it. I get that that's what she wanted you to think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Athena meets up with Rick. I was like, yes,
I let's see Rick.
I
love
love
Rick.
them like working together.
Yeah.
Such a good duo.
So Athena's waiting for him. He pulls in. They're going to meet the medical examiner, and Rick is surprised Athena wanted to review the autopsy. She wanted to review the autopsy of Richard, I think was his name, or
Richard
what?
Bullock.
Bullock.
Yeah.
Okay. He's like, it's kind of weird that you want to, review the autopsy when it's clear that the guy shot himself, and 911 was on the line, and Rick thinks it's just like an open and shut case, but is like, yeah, but it's a little too open and shut. So Athena wants to make sure that he's actually the one who pulled the trigger, which makes sense because right now, and especially because they were on the phone and we weren't really getting like a visual of his side. We don't know
Right.
exactly what happened, but the assumption was made that he committed suicide. So the Emmy confirmed that his finger was definitely on the trigger, that he had gunshot residue all over his right hand and temple. And Athena says how he did shoot himself, and the Emmy said how she didn't say that, and she said that he died from chloroform in his system. So he used chloroform to incapacitate his victims, and Athena questions could that account for it, but the Emmy says it's not at these levels, like it was really high doses. So the Emmy thinks that he was probably chloroformed repeatedly, and Athena says how someone manipulated his trigger finger to make him see it and shoot himself, and the Emmy says how she doesn't solve the puzzle, she just provides the pieces. I like that.
Yeah.
So Rick
I
was
love
like,
it.
so somehow someone kept him alive long enough for him to be a fresh kill when they got there. And Athena says that somebody is still out there. So now they're realizing that somebody was working with this guy. And yeah. So I'm like, yay for Athena and her guts. Her gut
Yeah.
instinct. Something's not right about this. So Rick and Athena go to see Jaina, the victim from the previous episode, and they ask how she's doing, and says she'll get discharged soon if her mom can come pick her up. Her mom hasn't been able to get a ride yet, and they want to ask her about her captivity, but she doesn't remember much. And she says she remembers smelling chemicals and not much else from being picked up at the bus station. And she says the man never touched her, and Athena's like, he asked when he took her, does she remember being taken and seeing anyone else? And she's like, oh, you mean the woman? And Rick's like, you saw a woman? She didn't see her, but she heard her. She thought she was a victim and she was crying. She didn't think she was was a victim because they were arguing and she sounded older. I was like, crying, huh? Oh, okay. Where have you heard that before?
I know, right?
So we see Maddie's finishing up writing her note, and then Amber duct tapes her hands back up and reads the note and says how you really love her. And Maddie's like, yeah, I really do. And Amber says how if her mother had loved her as much as she loves G, maybe she wouldn't be in this situation right now. So then we start picking up that there might be something going on in her past that's aggravating her or making this more personal than just being some psycho person doing something random. Yeah, I think I struggled with this scene because it just was so weird. Like I get her wanting to like let Maddie have closure, but like how was she going to deliver the note? Like and just oh yeah, we went to this place and we saw her and or she gave us this no, like how yeah. So I guess that was like where was this going to come up?
I know.
My guess is they were probably going to leave it on the beach.
I was just thinking that. I was like, well, they're probably gonna say that, I don't know, they're probably gonna leave it somewhere like the beach and be like, oh, we found this and it's from Maddie, and then like Maddie's still gone. But like that's suspicious. So yeah.
Right. So she takes the note, tells Maddie that it's time, and Maddie's trying to say something, and Amber says like no more talking, and Maddie begs her not to do this to her daughter, and Amber is crying because saying please don't make me do this, and says if she doesn't do it, she will. So I think it was the personalities were kind of like if you don't do it, I'm gonna do it. So they were like kind of competing against each other.
That was so weird. Just because like this is when I first like realized that that's what they were trying to do and stuff, because obviously I'm watching it live, so there's like nothing about there on any of this. There's like literally nothing out there, so I don't know any of this. And I don't know, that's just when I started to realize it. And I'm just like the whole time I was like, and honestly, I didn't even realize it the first time. I didn't realize it until the second time. Because honestly, like I noticed her like doing this back and forth thing, but I didn't notice or pay attention to like exactly what was going on. I was just like, oh, that's weird. Like, what's going on here?
Well, this one, I had thought that she was telling Maddie she needed to do it, or else that she would. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
pick up that she was talking with her alternate. So, I don't know. I
Right.
mean, she was definitely having a switch between alters, in this one, but
Right.
I didn't realize that it was happening with that.
Mm-hmm. So Amber's whimpering and saying to Maddie it's not to not take it personally as she's got the syringe in her hand. But Maddie used the name from the first call, John, and is trying to talk to her, but like talk her out of this. And then by Maddie using John's name, it kind of triggered her, I guess. And like it talks her out of it enough for the moment, and then Amber runs upstairs. So
Well, it wasn't even John apparently. The person's or the alter was like, no, my name's Peter.
yeah.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, was she just using John as a fake name, or are there three personalities
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I don't know
or
when
more?
before we knew what all this was, like when she called the first time as John, and obviously we don't know that's her, obviously. When I was thinking about the call, not realizing what it was going to become, I was like, well, John's very like generic, and especially if you don't know somebody's name, you're either like Jane Doe or John Doe. So that's
Mhm.
what that
Yeah.
made me of when we first got all this. So I was just like,
Right.
oh, it's just a very generic name. Like, okay.
Yeah, I just kind of thought it was a fake name. Now I'm like, I wonder if it's a fake name or a third alter. Either way,
Yeah, that too.
Well, it's a little more original than Freddie Fakeman.
I love that though. And there's so
That
many
was good though.
people that like have changed their name on social media, like just their like not like their username, but their profile name to be Freddie Fakeman. And every time I see it, I just laugh. I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
Hilarious. Yeah.
I love that just Buck had no more original ideas than that.
And the fact that Eddie didn't even put two and two together until they literally verbally said it.
Right. He's like, I
He's
get
like,
it
listen,
now.
when you say it out loud.
That was so good. So Athena calls Amber no response, which obviously makes sense. But Athena and Romero had brought in the Richard's ex to kind of question her, and they were waiting for Amber because they wanted Amber to do it. But after the third message, Amber's not responding. Rick makes a comment of, who do you call when your missing persons detective goes missing?
Yeah.
This
was
was so suspicious to me because I'm just
Yeah.
like I get it. This was kind of the point, but I'm just like, I wanted them to be like, okay, well, our missing persons detective is missing. Like, isn't that a bit suspicious? Like,
Right?
it was kind of like, it was so weird because I'm just like, Athena, come on. Like, you're telling me
Well,
Athena's not even, and I get people were like,
to be fair, if even if they had realized she'd gone missing, they might have thought that the person had taken her too.
Yeah.
yeah, well,
Because at this time they're thinking accomplice, and they're like, they probably wouldn't have gone for one of their own.
yeah.
Right.
I feel like if you're gone for that many for hours, maybe you should be going to her house, just saying. Because like
Uh,
it was just very like I get it, we know more than they do, but I'm just like Athena, really come on, please wake up.
Right. Well, she'll get
Yeah.
there. It'll take her a little bit. So
Eventually.
Rick and Athena end up having to question the lady. And she asks if they found Richard, and they tell her they did, and that she asked if they found the girl who was with him, and Athena says, she was. They tell her she's alive, and Rick is like, "Aren't you going to ask about your boyfriend?" And she says, "X," and Athena's like, "Yeah, X everything," and she doesn't get it. And then Rick is like, "He's dead." And Athena says how she doesn't seem broken up about it, and the lady says he was a creep, and Athena is like, "A creep you were with for how many years?" So obviously they think the woman that Jaina had mentioned was this gal,
Right.
and she doesn't deny it, which obviously there's things going on, and it's just yeah. I felt like this scene was actually kind of a red herring, but
Oh
Athena
yeah.
and Rick were just they didn't know, and so like, well, the only woman we know of connected is the ex, so the ex-girlfriend. So let's talk with her.
I know. I
I'm
know.
begging people to go watch Criminal Minds. This is how things happen. Naturally, they're gonna look at
I know.
the
Not
guy's
even Criminal
girlfriend.
Minds, but other shows too.
Yeah.
Like, I know a couple people were kind of annoyed that they put the scene in and they were going this angle when we knew that literally this was not what was happening at all. But I'm like, guys, do you not watch any crime shows? Like, this is just how it works. You have the person
We
that
just
you know for a fact has nothing to do with it in the middle of the episode because you know they're not going to catch the killer and then the first 30 minutes of the episode. They're gonna catch them within the last 10 to 20 minutes of the episode. So I'm just like, I
Right.
get everyone's frustration because this lady clearly did not do it. We all know this, but that's just how TV works.
And
That's so
also we
true.
were given an advantage in knowing from the
Yeah,
beginning
if we
who it
didn't know,
was.
we
If
would
we
have suspected, you know?
And this would have been like, this is totally natural progression. This is how the episodes work. Again, I'm just begging someone to go watch a crime show and realize that this is how all the episodes work.
Right? Yes. This is very procedural.
Yeah, like natural suspicion, even if I felt a little bad for the woman, but it was still like, oh well. I'm mostly glad that Amber wasn't there, or else could you have imagined what would have happened to the girlfriend at that point? Ex-girlfriend, I will say.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah. So Rick and Athena show her pictures of Richard dead and saying, somebody wanted to make his death look like a suicide. And the lady's like, well, I had an alibi. I was at the casino until 3 a.m., which they do end up checking out and see her on cameras and things like that. So unfortunately, they know she's not the person who did it. So then we're back to Jaina's hospital room, and Amber shows up. And
Oh my
Jaina's
God. When I saw this, I was like,
I know what was going down when she showed up.
Yeah.
I was like, God, no.
Yep.
No.
So Amber shows up, and Jaina's, of course, not remembering her. But she explains, that she helped save her. And then Amber tells Jaina that she's being discharged, and she takes Jaina, even though her mom isn't there, which very suspicious.
poor
So
Jaina. I just feel so bad for this girl.
right.
I
So
know.
Athena and Rick are going through known victims, and Athena says how they have to go through the case logs and go back like 20 years and hopefully find their suspect and run away with victims. They were age range from like 14 to 20, where the perpetrator used chloroform and bonus points if they, the suspect called 911. So they're trying to like piece things together. And
Yeah.
I'm really glad they did what they did. We'll talk about it in a second. So Chim's at the table and with Head and Karen, and they're listening to the police scanner, which I'm like, Chim, don't do it, because obviously they're listening in to see if there's any, calls about missing person or a body or anything like that. And, then Chim says, you guys should go home. It's a school night and the kids should go sleep in their own beds. And Chim also says he needs to get G down in her own bed. And seeing him cry was just like so hard because he's so worried and he has no idea what's going on. And he feels helpless. And I get that. So they kind of all say goodnight and they start leaving. And then Hen knocks on the door and Chim thinks they forgot something, but Hen explains that they were getting in the car. Mara said something. Hen tells Mara to tell Chim what she had told Hen. And Mara says that G had said Maddie was talking to somebody who was crying last night after she went to bed. So then Chim realizes there was someone in the house last night. So it wasn't just Maddie.
Which, makes sense. G doesn't realize the gravity of the situation, so
Right.
she wouldn't have said it before. What is she, 3, 4? She doesn't understand what's happening.
No. She just knows that somebody was
But
crying in the house.
yeah, and of course she's more likely to talk to someone she sees as a sister anyway. So
Right.
So Rick finds something. In the paperwork, he finds there's a 14-year-old girl taken outside of Union Station in 2000 and was found 2 weeks after wandering the streets with near lethal amounts of chloroform in her system after she called 911. And Athena's like, so she escaped. And Rick's like, it looks like it. They don't know her name because it doesn't say, it's been redacted because she was a minor. And they can't contact the investigating detective because he died 5 years prior, but like 5 years prior to current times. So they go to 911 to see if they can find the call. And Buck, Eddie, and Hen are at Chim's, and Buck says how they hit every bus station and nobody has seen Maddie. Buck says what Chim is doing, and Hen says how he is trying to get in contact with the detective, and she tells them that G heard someone in the house crying that night. Buck's like, someone not being Maddie, and Chim says how they're sending calls to Amber's cell phone, but Eddie says how it's getting late, and Chim says, he can't wait, because they're trying to like, well, maybe she's just turns her phone off after a certain time and doesn't answer the phone, but most detectives don't do that.
yeah, no.
Especially when they're in an active case like this especially missing kids. So Athena and Rick go to see Josh at the call center, and they're trying to listen to the call from 2000. So they know that the call came from somewhere downtown, and Josh says how that's like a deep pull because it's a vague, they know the date and the year, but they're like, downtown could have been a lot of calls. So Athena explains details about it that they could possibly dig up. So they're trying to figure out who they want to find the call so they can listen to it. He does end up finding it and plays the call. And it definitely fits the other description of some of the girls. And the girl says her name is Amber Brayburn, like the detectives. Gee.
I was like, wait. This is when things started to connect, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
what?
There's
Things
pieces
started
here.
making sense.
Right.
And Rick is like, Amber, like the missing persons detectives was a missing person, and he's questioning, is she working with Richard? And Athena thinks Richard was her patsy. I personally think that he was actually the one that initially kidnapped her. And then after she was triggered and just started doing this herself. I hoping to get to
I-
him.
Yeah, I kind of have like
I
a
thought-
similar theory.
I don't know why I got the impression they got the guy who kidnapped her.
Oh yeah,
I got
Oh.
that impression.
possibly. Yeah. And Athena's like, she handed them him to them on a silver platter from the start. Like she did it on purpose, like totally on purpose. So Athena asked Josh to pull up her Brayburn's address, and he says he already did it like 5 minutes ago because Jim asked for it. And I was
Of
like,
course
of
he
course
did.
you did, Jim. So now they know that
When
Jim's
I-
on his way to her place.
When I first saw this, I saw a clip of this before I watched the episode, and I was like, Josh, why'd you do that? And then I watched this, and I was like, oh, Josh, like Jim and Josh both did not know at the time. He just thought he was providing dirt,
Yeah.
which I still don't know. Still don't know necessarily how
Right.
correct that is, but it's still like,
Yeah.
oh, this wasn't knowingly providing him to the serial killer's address.
Right. Yeah. He's like, no, I need to get information to her and she's not answering her phone. So I want to go to her house. Like, yeah. And I was like, oh God, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So then we see Maddie getting her hands free. And then she can unlock her shackled leg. But she can't get upstairs. So she starts looking around for things, finds a hammer and all these clippings, like newspaper clippings. One is of Amber's escape and the other is of Amber's captor who she escaped from. And it took me a second, maybe, and this is where you were getting this correct. I don't know. I was like, it just didn't, I think I kind of missed a part of this, just like of what she was reading. Cause I was like, my eyes were focusing on stuff around Maddie, not just what
Right,
she
that
was
was me
doing.
the first time. Like I didn't
Yeah.
really like pay attention to like what she was finding until like the second time around, because I was like mostly the first time I was paying attention to like what they were saying, and then the second time I was able to like obviously pause and like kind of somewhat look at what she was finding and stuff.
I mainly noticed that they had a photo of a guy in the clippings, so it looked like they had caught him. And that's where I was going from, unless for some
Okay.
reason there was another guy, but that's where I was that's what I was kind of thinking.
Yeah, because it said that he kept his victims in a dungeon, and so
Which
it's like
where she is right now.
right.
Yeah, exactly. That was my exact thought, because I'm just like, oh, well, this looks very familiar to
Right.
your captivity.
So the
Yeah.
computer like screens with all the cameras on it beeps, so Maddie knows that Amber's back. And so kind of Maddie scurries back to like puts her shackle back on and all this stuff, and then she brings Jaina down, and Maddie asks like what she's doing, and she said she's giving her a chance to talk her out of it. So Amber's gonna try and wants to kill Jaina, but wants Maddie to talk her out of it. I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Maddie tells her like she knows who she is and that she escaped once. She knows what happened and she knows, what he did. Amber says she has no idea, and Maddie says she does. She was a prisoner once too, and she did whatever to survive. They both did. Amber said how she's a monster, and Maddie tells her that she is sick and that it's not her fault. Maddie tells her that she I don't know. So I think Maddie's finally putting the pieces together that there's another personality. So she's trying to get her to fight him. And then Amber puts a knife to Jaina's throat. But then we see Chim at the front door, and which was totally like what you said. Like that's when I got the Carlos kidnapped vibe, because like he's seeing TK, or like this, it's like Maddie's seeing Chim, and so Amber gags Jaina and says she'll have to get back to this later. Maddie asks her what she's going to do, and she says she's got to get rid of Maddie's husband. So then Maddie knows that like she's going to have to do something. So Maddie starts to attack Amber, which this does not go well. And
Not at
Amber
all.
ends up slashing Maddie's throat.
I was not prepared.
Nope.
Yeah, no, I was like screaming when that happened. I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, like I was totally expecting it to get very physical, because like, oh, the second I saw the hammer in like the still pictures, I was like, oh, we know that's gonna come into play. So
Right.
I was like totally like obviously she did take that out and stuff, but like I was like, oh, was not expecting that one.
No. So then Amber had gone upstairs after she did this to Maddie, and answers the door, and Chim's like, he's been trying to reach her all night, and she makes an excuse of working downstairs and saying the reception is bad. Yeah, right. So Chim tells her he thinks Maddie was taken because their daughter says she heard someone in the house, and Amber asks what G said she heard, and Chim explains that she heard somebody crying, someone that wasn't Maddie. And Chim's like, I know this sounds strange, but so Amber, offers to get him some water, and I'm like, don't drink it, just because I don't know, I don't trust this gal. And then Chim all of a sudden gets a call from Athena, and she tells him not to react. But basically, Athena thinks Amber took Maddie, and they think she's the serial killer. She tells Chim to get out of there and make any excuse. Chim hangs up, but he's not planning on leaving, and Amber knows Athena figured it out. And Chim asks where Maddie is, and then he's yelling for her. Just kind of as they start to have a scuffle, Maddie knocks Amber out, but she's bleeding bad, and he calls 911, and then Amber points the gun at Chim's head, but Athena and Rick come around the corner just at the right time, and Athena shoots her.
She got a good shot, guys.
Yeah, she did. Very good shot.
Damn good shot.
Like, we know that, but like, oh, like the way that scene, and like, I know people are talking about this, but honestly, I can look away from accuracy for this scene because like I don't want anything to happen to Maddie, but like she totally should have died with the way her throat was slashed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like
that was my
'cause,
thing. I was like, how the yeah.
like that
Yeah.
was like, yeah, like that should have ended up like that, but like honestly, I can look away with it just for the fact that it's a show and I don't want Maddie to die.
Right.
The entire throat is comprised of things that are vital. So it's like, could I have gone for maybe the stabbing or something like that? Sure. Even though stabbing could have meant her losing the baby. I don't know. There's a lot of accuracy things I am overlooking in this episode.
Yeah,
One
yeah,
was mental
really-
health rep, and another with the slashing throat.
Yeah. I was really glad they didn't go the whole like stabbing her in the stomach route to try and kill the
I was really
baby,
worried.
because I was like, no, they've been through so much trauma with kids and all that, and like
not to mention the trauma she's gonna have from all this. It's gonna be
Right.
so much. And I'm just like, yeah, I know what multiple people were like, well, this definitely what happened. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the point. We don't want Maddie to die. And also,
Right.
yeah, I get it. Some people are like, Tim's incapable of killing anybody off, but honestly, isn't that what you like about that one?
So then we see the next scene as everyone's at the hospital. You can kind of see the camera panning around everybody, and Chim tells Hen she should go, and he will call her if anything happens, but she should be with her family. And she's like, what makes you think I'm not? Which I loved.
Oh, I love it.
And then Chim gets an update from the doctor, but we don't really hear it. It's just you see him going to see Maddie as she wakes up, and he tells her that she and the baby is going to be okay. And the way he says it is like, he's going to be okay. She's like, so they're having a boy.
that was totally unexpected for me because like I wasn't anticipating that.
Yeah.
I was not expecting a gender reveal, but you know what? We'll take
Right?
it.
You know?
Well, not even that. Like I don't know why, but like I was like, oh, watch them have another girl. Like I could totally see that happening. And then the fact that it was
Being an
boy, I was
all-girl
like, I
family,
love
I totally
that.
see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was you're right. I wasn't expecting a gender reveal, but like I'm really glad that they did do the gender, because they found out actually it's fitting they medically found out both times. The first time was just through the ultrasound, like watching the video together. And then the second time was at the hospital. But I don't know, it was cute. And so the last scene of the episode is Buck and Eddie. Buck is helping Eddie finish packing, and Eddie says how Chris is going to be psyched. Buck found his favorite t-shirt. He's been looking for it ever since he moved to Texas. Buck's like, just make sure he knows I found it. And Eddie thanks Buck for helping him get back to him, and Buck is like, yeah, of course, don't sweat it. And Eddie makes the comment, the whole thing between them has been messy and hard, and they could have both handled it better. Eddie hopes Buck knows that he does matter to him, and Buck's like, I know. And then Eddie tells Buck that Chris and him are only a phone call or FaceTime away. And then there's this like awkward pause, but then, it's Buck and Eddie. So then like Buck's like, oh wait, I baked you something. So he dashes off to his truck. Which, when did Buck get a truck?
I honestly didn't even connect to that.
I didn't even see that really. course he got a truck.
Right. So Buck comes back. He had baked some protein cookies for Eddie to make sure that he can stay awake on the road, but also tells Eddie he needs to save some for Chris. Then they go through the standard, like, oh, make sure you let me know when you get there, keep in touch, and they hug, and that's Eddie gets in the truck and leaves. And I'm like, I'm getting ready to do this to my friends. So like for my friends, like it's weird seeing that. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to have her watch. Like she watches 911, but it's been so long, she's so behind. But I feel like these 2 episodes I needed to watch because I'm like, I need you to understand. Like
Yeah.
this is, you know,
My
this is what it's
favorite
like moving,
part,
you know, losing friends.
yeah, my favorite part of this whole scene was just the fact that Eddie was like to Buck, like, you do matter
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
Like
And
that
like
was
someone just
like,
needs to tell Buck that more.
yeah,
Right.
it was so important for Buck, and it was just so sweet to see. And I'm just like, we know Eddie's gonna be back, but it's just
Yeah.
like I like the scene for now, And I was like, so I knew Eddie was leaving in this episode, but I was like, wait,
Right.
how is this gonna happen when we also have like this huge Maddie storyline? And I was like, oh, it's probably gonna be like the last scene of the episode. So when I saw this, I was like, yep, okay, that makes sense. Because
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
the behind the scenes of this was the fact that we knew we were getting this scene because they had been filming like on somebody's like near somebody's house. They filmed
Mm-hmm.
this TikTok and was like
Oh,
they clearly did not know the significance of this because they
right.
were like,
Yeah.
look what's outside my window today. And then the fact that it was like them hugging or something like
Yeah.
that. And then you see the U-Haul and
Yeah.
like they did not know that how significant this was for the whole fandom. And then just
Right.
everybody seeing that and be like, yeah, you definitely do not realize what you just showed us, but okay, thanks.
Thanks, bye.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I saw that a couple weeks ago, I was like, oh my God, and I was telling my roommate, I was like, yeah, I was like, I remember exactly when the day they filmed that because it was all over the internet. But no, yeah, I was really glad for the scene, and I'm glad that Eddie told him what he did about him mattering. And I think it's hard, especially in situations like this where you've got two friends that have been really close for so long. A change in life circumstances for whatever reason is a big deal. But I have friends, I mean, we're friends and we live across the country from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if that can happen, then the friends that you have like in your like local area who decide to move away for whatever reason or have to move away, it's like you're still there. You can call them, FaceTime them, visit them.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's
it's so
not like
easy
Eddie is
nowadays. Like,
leaving, never
yeah,
gonna see them again.
right. I guarantee we'll probably get like a FaceTime scene in a couple episodes or
No,
something
probably.
like that. Like something. Yeah, it's like so manageable to like, maintain friendships like when you're like across the country and like all everywhere. Like if you want to make the effort, you can make the effort, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you wanted to, you would. And
Exactly.
that is truly very accurate saying.
Yeah. And I'm a firm believer of if you love someone, let them go. And if they come back, it was meant to be. And if they
Yeah.
don't, then it
Yeah.
was never meant to be. And so you know, if I think this is the healthiest way, like Buck's letting Eddie go and letting him do what he needs to do, and he'll be back. Like Ryan is not leaving the series. We'll get him back in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not the next episode. I did hear that after this episode, there's going to be a time jump of a couple weeks, couple months, maybe. So we'll have kind of more established of like maybe Buck is, you know, video chatting regularly with Eddie and Chris, or you know, just hearing things and stuff. So yeah, this was a great episode. Definitely very intense in certain spots. The injury to Maddie, I'm curious like what they're gonna do moving forward with that. Just how
Right.
damaged her like throat is.
Yeah, because obviously she needed like a surgery and stuff. I'm like, I really hope that like in the coming episodes that they do like kind of address some of the stuff that happened in this episode, whether if it's a scene with her and Buck or her and Chim or something. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't want like sometimes they do this and it drives me nuts, but they'll like have a storyline happen and then they'll never mention the storyline again. So I'm like,
They do that with most of their storylines, and it gets
Right.
rather
that's
annoying.
that it is it's yeah, that's my thing. So I'm like, I hope they like talk about like this in the episodes coming up whichever ones it is, I hope they do, because I really don't want this to be one that they just like never talk about again. It's like, wow, we had this really traumatic thing happen, but we're not going to address it ever. Like it's
Right.
almost like it never happened. And I'm just like, can we not
Yeah.
do that?
Also, I need them to commit to scarring
Yeah.
because, like for example, Buck's leg has no scars even after all his surgeries and the truck accident. And we know because we've seen him in basketball shorts since then.
Oh yeah.
So they don't stay committed to like the consequences of their storylines. And so
Mhm.
I can't necessarily just write off we're never going to see Maddie's throat again
Right.
because we
Yeah.
will.
Yeah, because like, what is she gonna wear turtlenecks in LA? You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
Oh
exactly.
gosh.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point. And I think it's gonna be interesting too with because I know once you damage the throat area, like there's a lot of recovery with that. Like
I would imagine voice-wise too.
voice, yeah, your voice is never gonna be the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
So I'm curious
Yeah.
if they're gonna use that as like a catalyst for like that kind of trauma from Maddie, like complications or something from that. Because I know I've heard like there was an article or something where it was like talking about how she took her Amber took Maddie's safe place away. And I don't know if that meant 911 or if that meant like the way her speaking and connecting with callers,
Also her home where her child is.
right?
Those are all
Yeah.
safe places.
So yeah, I'm curious to see. But yeah, this was a really good episode. I'm glad it didn't get drawn out much more because I don't think we could have handled another episode or two of kidnapped Maddie and everybody looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, they weren't gonna do that. They would have just, it wouldn't have been as good. I don't like, I feel like 2 episodes for this kind of storyline is kind of like the max. I feel like any more is just like way too drawn out and it just doesn't make sense anyways. Like the 2 episodes were like perfect. And yeah, I did feel better about it the second time around, just because the first time around I felt like I missed things or I didn't connect things as much because obviously like a lot's happening in that first watch. But I was just like, I was so confused at the, not even confused, but I was just like, I want to know about this. I want to know about that. Like I needed more answers, and obviously we're not getting them.
Right.
But it did
Yeah.
make more sense the second time around. And it was such a good episode just for like the Maddie storyline, but also for like to see like Jennifer do all this.
Oh yeah, she was amazing in this
Oh yeah.
episode.
She killed
Yeah,
this.
like it really was like that. And like also like the Chim stuff we got was great, like
Mm-hmm.
for his like emotion, because this was like, oh, this was such a hard episode for him. Oh my God. And I kind of liked that we kind of saw like him with that, like his view,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff a lot more.
Yeah. And I love seeing the family dynamic, you know, the family of the 118 and extended
Hmm.
family of the 118 kind of coming together to be there, whether it's helping watch G and keep her mind off of things, or Buck and Eddie going out and looking for Maddie while, you know, Hen's doing something and Shin's doing something. Yeah, I think it was a really great episode.
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah, I think it was a really great episode. I really enjoyed it. It's either tied for my favorite of the season or it was my favorite of the season so far. It
Yeah.
was just really good. I definitely have some accuracy things about mental health and the
Yeah.
slashing throat, but those aside, it was just really great. The acting was on point. I loved the
Mm-hmm.
dynamics. Again, we were talking about like family dynamics. It was just so, again, it's not like we haven't gotten this, but it's just like this is probably the best we've seen for a while of like
Mm-hmm.
118 family. I'm
Right.
always here for that. And of course being reminded like how much Hen and Karen are like a part of Chim and
Mm-hmm.
Maddie's lives as well. So
Yeah.
that was absolutely great. Of course we love and hate watching Eddie leave because that scene
Right.
between Buck and Eddie was really sweet. But of course it's difficult to see him leave, especially when we don't know when we're getting him back exactly.
Mm.
But just across the board, really good episode.
Yeah, for sure. Do we have any listener thoughts?
I don't think so, because I don't know. I think the thing was all messed up.
Oh no.
But We'll fix it for you guys next week. Just let us know what you think, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So promo. I actually watched the promo and it was interesting. I'm probably gonna have a lot to say about this show. So we start they're at a mega church and people are passing out, and this woman's like, "This is the power of God." Yeah, I'm gonna have
Okay
issues with
then.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this woman's like, when Bobby and the 118 show up, she looks at Bobby and is like, "Well, you look well." And Shim's like, "Do you know her?" And Bobby says, "That's my mom."
That's my mother.
That's
Oh my
my
God, the
mother.
way I was
Oh.
what?
And then Athena comments to Bobby, which in the background it kind of looks like they're maybe around like the house being rebuilt. And she's like, "When were you ever going to tell me that your mother wasn't dead?" Because I think that's what everybody has assumed. And Bobby says she's
Yeah.
a fraud and a con artist, and it's embarrassing. Which I get where he's coming from. And so Bobby's like at the church wherever she's at, and she passes he sees his mom pass out while he's watching from the side of the stage and at the church, and then he tells someone to call 911 and that asks his mom to stay with him. And so it's a very interesting episode. We did get a Ravi sighting in the promo too, so Ravi's
Oh
back,
yeah.
obviously, because
I
Eddie's gone.
Yeah, this is going to be like when I saw this, I was like, what the heck?
Right.
What? Also, there's so many thoughts. Like I know when I post the promo and people are like commenting, well, I wouldn't have expected Bobby's mom to be like this religious whatever person, and I'm just like, yeah, because she's giving more off. Like I have so many thoughts. She honestly reminds me of a mother in the Rookie, one of the officers' mothers who actually ended up in a like some type of like MLM scam scheme, and I could totally see that this
Hmm.
lady could be in the same thing. And also people are like, it was funny because people are like, wait, how does Bobby's mom look like that? Because Bobby's probably in like his mid to early 60s, and the fact that this woman looks like she could be his sister and not his mother is kind of just like, and people are like, hey, it's the power of God, and I'm just like, I think this is gonna be a cult. I really do.
Probably, yeah. Bobby, if I remember age-wise correctly, is in his late 50s and maybe early 60s, but
Mm.
I'm pretty sure late 50s. So I don't know. Obviously, I'm not seeing the promo. I never do. So I have no idea what she looks like, but I'm like, huh, interesting.
Right. I know we
I'm
got
gonna be
that.
interested to see.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna be interested to see what they do with this because I know wasn't last season we even learned about like Bobby's
Yeah, we had the
past and like
flashback of
his
his dad.
dad. Yeah.
And we learned
And
that the
like,
mother and the brother moved away and tried to get Bobby to go, but he refused to leave his dad.
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. I thought that was what had happened. So, yeah, I'm very curious because I, when Bobby's dad died, he went to live with his mom again, right? That's what I'm assuming happened.
Yeah, he would have had to, unless
Unless
he
he
would
was
have had
he-
to.
I'm very curious where they're going to like fill in the missing pieces there,
Yeah. I
especially
also
with him calling her a fraud and a con artist. I'm like,
Yeah,
hmm,
those are
what's
some very
happening there?
specific statements. Yeah.
yeah, it is very interesting. So he obviously like must have said something to imply that his mother was dead, which is why Athena's like, were you ever gonna tell me that she wasn't dead? Um,
They keep doing storylines like that.
I
It
know.
was
I
it was
know.
just yeah, it was funny. I was like,
It was hilarious. Like, it was an experience seeing all this. I'm just like, oh, okay, we're going here. Okay.
yeah,
Uh,
Awesome,
um,
here for it.
yeah. I'm not complaining. Cool because I think we've asked for it, and I
yeah.
feel like it's needed, and we've met Athena's parents, and I think we've all wondered, like, now that we know more about his dad and like what happened in his past, like I've been curious about mom.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of us just kind of assumed in the back of our mind that she was dead,
I
but
kind of did because like I was
you
thinking
know,
about it earlier. I was like, I
no,
guess I kind of assumed that she would have been
yeah,
dead.
Yeah. Because we haven't heard anything about her for 8 seasons.
Right.
Yeah, and I know it was like rumored that Bobby's brother was gonna be in an episode. I don't know if that's still a thing, but I don't know. It could come up this season. But
This would be the episode to have a brother show up in.
That is
If they're
true.
mitigating
Yeah.
something with their dad.
So I'm
Especially
wondering
this
if
one
it
being a
is.
multi-episode thing.
Yeah, I have a feeling that like more of this stuff would be coming up in like, the last set of episodes
Yeah.
and stuff. And I know like the Doctor Odyssey whatever crossover thing is happening, but like I think it's just gonna be on Doctor Odyssey because I did see like somebody post the promo for that. It'll be interesting to see how much. I know I saw like Athena on the cruise ship and like that and like, but I'm interested to see how much of the episode she's in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also Aisha's directing this episode. So that's exciting. I'm really interested to see that. That's so cool. So lots happening.
Yeah. I
this
love that she
week.
posted a picture like of her reading the pilot script on
Yes.
in her being Hen, and then like how it started and how it's going, like her in the director's seat. Like I love it.
I love watching that.
Thank you guys so much for joining and listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to check out our website at 911lsroundup.com. You guys can follow the podcast on our socials at 911LS Roundup on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. And you can join our Discord server with the link in the description of the podcast, or it's also on our website.
You guys can follow me, Katie, at Love Turtles on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads.
You guys can follow me, Grace, at Ronan Rafa 911 on Instagram and Threads.
You can follow me, EJ, at EJ8302 on Instagram and Threads. Bye.
Bye.